Now let us study about that strategic change and what are the steps to initiate the strategic change. Now first let us understand what is meant by strategic change. See, you should always remember that we are functioning in a dynamic and uncertain environment. We are functioning in a dynamic and uncertain environment. Everything changes. Everything is uncertain. Okay. So, in this dynamic and uncertain environment, we cannot expect the status quo. We cannot expect the same thing all the time. So, according to the changing environment, in BCK at foundation level, one very important point is said. That is, we need to always monitor and adapt to the situations. This is the most important thing. Monitor and adapt to the situations. So, you have to monitor what are the changes that are taking place in the environment, and accordingly, you have to adapt to the changes. And in the first lesson, we have learned that you need to have both proactive strategies and reactive strategies. So, these two are very, very important. So, you have to behave both proactively and also reactively. That means, according to the changing environmental conditions, according to the changing macro factors like political, legal, economic, technological, social, demographic, global factors, okay, you have to change your policies. You have to change your strategies. You cannot carry out the same strategy even in the changing conditions. Your strategy will not give you good results. Okay, so that is the most important point we need to understand. And the changes in the environmental forces. What are the environmental forces? I have already told you. Social, demographic, technological, legal, political, economic, global. These are all the environmental forces. Often require businesses to make modifications in their existing strategies and bring out new strategies. Yes. See, in this COVID-19 situation, all the companies are revisiting their strategies. They are trying to change their strategies. They are trying to revise their strategies. Yes, that you have to do, because this COVID-19 has brought lot of changes in the sociological forces, in the government regulations, in the natural environment, in the regulatory environment. Many changes are taking place. See, even in India, we have Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is giving a new direction to the Indian economy. So, the economic forces are changing. So, accordingly, you have to change your strategies. You cannot continue with the same old strategies like pre-COVID times. The strategies which you have followed in the pre-COVID times, it is not flexible and it is not appropriate to implement the same strategies even in the post-COVID situations. This COVID-19 is a major initiative to change the organization's strategies. And strategic change is a complex process. This is what you need to understand. Changing your strategy. Already you may be following a particular strategy. So changing that strategy and adapting a new strategy, following it, is not a simple thing. Strategic change is a complex process and it involves a corporate strategy focused on new markets, products, services and new ways of doing the business. Yes, according to the changing conditions, you have to launch new products into the market. You have to offer new services into the market. You have to change the way of doing your business. You have to change your modus operandi. So these all things are very, very important in the changing, dynamic and uncertain environment. Now, if you can observe, today the companies like Dabur, Wipro and many other companies, they are launching sanitizers, okay, germ killing soaps and all. That means in the COVID situation, they launched new products and they made a decision to change their strategies, and the priorities keep on changing. That is the most important thing. With the changing environmental conditions, with the changing environmental factors, your priorities keep on changing. Okay, so that is the most important point you need to understand. Now, let us see what are the steps to initiate the strategic change. That means what things you have to follow to bring about change in the organization. The first one is recognize the need for change. The first step is to diagnose the areas of the present corporate culture that are strategy supportive and that are not. That means the first thing, the foremost thing that you have to focus on your present corporate culture. Because already we learned that strategy culture becomes both an ally and an obstacle in the strategy implementation process. So if your strategy is not giving results, see, why do we implement the strategy? To gain the competitive advantage. To gain the competitive advantage. And if you strongly feel that you are not getting the competitive advantage by implementing your strategy, then what you have to do? You have to change your strategy. And before changing the strategy, what you have to observe? Whether your organization structure is appropriate or not. Whether your culture is supporting your strategy or not. So these points you have to check out. So the first and foremost thing is to check whether the corporate culture is strategy supportive or not. This is the first thing. And how can you say that your culture is not supporting your strategy? You can know that by environmental scanning. What do you mean by environmental scanning? Environmental scanning means in the environment there will be lot of events taking place. This is the concept in BCK at CA foundation level about environmental scanning. So there will be lot of events taking place in the environment. There will be lot of trends that are happening because of these events, and some of these events and trends may become issues to your organization, and the expectations of the people changes according to the events and issues and trends. So you have to observe all these four things that are taking place in the environment, and basing on this you have to make a decision whether to continue with the same strategy or you need to change the strategy or you need to change your culture. See, what you have to do, how you have to behave, it all depends on the environment. Because the most important thing is adapting to the environment. You have to do what is appropriate. That is very, very important. Next, it needs environmental scanning involving appraisal of both internal and external capabilities. Then we need to determine where the lacuna lies and where there is a scope for change. See, why we have to make the environmental analysis, why we have to make the environmental scanning? Because to find out the lacuna, where the gap lies, what are the expectations of the people, what are the expectations of the environment, what we ought to do and what we are doing. What we ought to do and what we are doing. Ought to do means what we have to do mandatorily and what we are doing. So always there is a gap between what you are doing and what has to be done. So what you have to do, you have to reduce the gap. You have to reduce the gap between what you are doing and what has to be done. So when can you get competitive advantage? You can get competitive advantage in the market only when you do what you have to do. So always you need to find out these two things. What has to be done and what we are doing. And how much gap is there? Why this gap is caused? Is this gap caused because of our culture, because of our structure, because of leadership problems, because of our strategy? What are the reasons? What are the reasons which are causing this gap? So you have to find out, and you should try to reduce the gap as close as possible. Okay, then only you can get strategic advantage. Next. So the first step gives you the need to change. Okay. By environmental scanning and by making self-analysis and all these things, you will come to know whether there is any need to change your strategy or not. Whether there is any need to change your structure, your culture, your strategy, is there any need or not? So that you will come to know. Now, once you know that there is a gap, once you know that there is a lacuna, what you have to do? You have to create a shared vision to manage the change. Objectives and vision of both individual and organizations should coincide. This is the most important thing. See, organization is having an objective. That is very good. And people working in the organization, they have another objective. They are not coinciding. There is no harmony. There is no coordination. So that will lead to chaos and confusion, and you cannot achieve anything with that. So then what you have to do? You have to ensure that the objectives of the individual or individual objectives should coincide with the organization objectives. That is the most important thing. Then only you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. So for that, what you have to do? Again, the tool is communication. You should communicate to all the people in your organization about the objectives, what they have to achieve, about the organizational objectives. That is the most important thing. And senior managers needs to constantly and consistently communicate the vision, not only to inform but also to overcome resistance. That is what I told. The only tool. See, communication is the biggest tool to help in the strategy implementation. So, the senior managers, the top level managers, they have to constantly and consistently communicate to all the people in the organization about the vision of the company, about the objectives we want to achieve. And here one beautiful point is said. Communicate the vision not only to inform, but to overcome resistance. This is the most important thing in communication. Communication is not just to inform. Communication is to get the feedback. Communication is to make other people share your feelings. That is the way how you should communicate. That is very, very important point. So, you should always keep in mind that communication is not just to inform about the situation, but to bring about the required change in the situation. So, in that way, you should use the powerful tool of communication. That means the senior managers should be good communicators. See, again, don't think that good communicators means that they should have good language skills, good verbal skills. No. Communication is not that. Communication is sensitizing the people to make them understand the situation and try to make them to share your feelings, to share your thoughts. How do you do that? Either verbally or non-verbally you can do that. But the most important thing here is sharing. All the organization members should share the same vision. We need to have a shared vision. Vision in which everyone is participating. That is the most important thing. And strategy implementers have to convince that the change in business culture is not superficial or cosmetic. This quite often happens in the organization. Whenever the top level management is initiating a change, or whenever the top level management is proposing a change, okay, many of the organizational workers, many of the organizational employees, they feel that these changes are just superficial or cosmetic. That means the top level managers will always tell like this only. They'll do it for 2 or 3 days. Later on, they'll forget it. We need not be very serious about it. So, in this manner, the people think. So, the seriousness has to be conveyed to the organizational people. The seriousness with which the culture has to be changed, the seriousness regarding bringing the change in the organization, has to be conveyed to all the people in the organization. That is very, very important. That means you need to make everyone serious about the change, serious about the achievement of the objectives. That is the most important role to be played by the top level managers. And the third one, institutionalize the change. See, in the first step, what we did, we have recognized whether a change is required or not. That is the first step, whether change is required or not. Now, in the first step, what you felt, that change is required. Change in your culture is required. Change in your policies is required. Then in the second step, what we did, we tried to create a shared vision. That means you try to communicate the need for change to all the people. You have communicated them, you have convinced them, you have got the consent of them. That is called as shared vision. See, here there are two words, vision shared and shared vision. Vision shared and shared vision. See, the meaning completely changes. The same words, but if you twist and turn the words, the meaning completely changes. What is vision shared? It will not give you good results. Okay. Vision shared means the top level management is having a vision, and that top level management is imposing that vision on all the people. The top level management is asking the people to follow that vision. So, in this vision shared, what happens? You will not get the enthusiasm, the commitment of all the employees to work, okay, in a wholehearted manner for the achievement of the organization objectives. Because that is imposed, the vision is imposed, and there are a lot of confusions among the people. There are a lot of confusions among the people. They are not convinced why they should do that. But still you are asking them to do. That is vision shared. So vision shared may not give you good results. That is a kind of autocratic style of management. Rather than vision shared, you need to have shared vision. That means first you need to communicate to all the organizational members about the situation, about the environmental factors and conditions, about the lacuna. You need to discuss with all of them, and you need to take their feedback, their advice, their proposals, and then you need to make a vision for your company. So that is shared vision. So in shared vision, the people will put their heart. In the vision shared, they will only put their head. But we require three things. What Swami Vivekananda says, we require head to think, heart to feel, and hand to work. So these three H are required. So in vision shared, what happens is there will be only head and hands. But the most important thing, heart is missing. Because they don't feel the importance of that vision and the importance of the strategy. So they may not work properly for the achievement of the objectives. But in vision shared, we have all the three H, head, heart and hands. Okay, so that they think, they feel and they work. And the feel with what they work, that feel is very important. And you can get that feel only when you communicate properly to the employees and make them participative. So we require participative style of management. That is what you need to understand. And institutionalize the change. This is an action stage. Okay, you have analyzed the lacuna, you have communicated, you have informed to all the employees, you had a shared vision. Now what you have to do? You should start implementing. You should start implementation of the new vision. Okay, this is an action stage which requires implementation of the changed strategy. See, once you have a new vision, what does it mean? In order to achieve that new vision, again you need to have a new strategy, isn't it? So now you have a new strategy. So creating and sustaining different attitude towards change is essential to ensure that the firm does not slip back into old ways of thinking or doing the things. This is very, very important. See, even though we have a new vision, but slowly what happens is, it is the problem of our mind which again pulls us back to the old way of thinking and old way of doing the things. So now the top level management has a very prominent role and a very serious role to play to not to make the organization go into the old path. Already you have a new vision, new objectives, new structure, new culture, and slowly you may be pulled back to old ways. So now the top level management has to take utmost care to not to make the organization to go into old way of doing the things. So that is the challenging task of the top level management. Okay, and all these changes should be set up as a practice to be followed by the organization to be able to transfer from one level to another as a well settled practice. That means the top level management has to make policies, procedures, practices, okay, in order to make the new change a habitual one, a routine one, so that everyone feel that this is the way of doing the things. That means the top level management should take care that the people forget the old way of doing the things and the people start thinking in a new way and working in a new way. And it takes time for the changed culture to prevail. So this is a point where many people miss out. They expect instant changes. They expect overnight changes. That do not happen. It takes time for the change to prevail. It takes time for the change to come. And if you want change, that change should be there from the functional level, from the business level and the corporate level. So it takes some time. Sometimes it may take years also. It may take years. That is why strategy is not a short-term exercise. Strategy, implementation of a strategy is a long-term managerial exercise. Okay. Now, here we have a very important, incredible, okay, question. That is the change process proposed by Kurt Lewin. It is more practical, more informative, and this question of Kurt Lewin's change process gives us a procedure to follow to bring about a change in your organization. This is a renowned theory proposed by Kurt Lewin. So what is strategic change, and explain the change process proposed by Kurt Lewin that can be useful in implementing the strategies. See, these all things already we know. Okay. Now let us read the third point. To make the change lasting, Kurt Lewin proposed 3 phases of the change process for moving the organization from the present to the future. What are they? First one, unfreezing the situation. Lewin proposes that the changes should not come as a surprise to the members of the organization. So now Kurt Lewin tells a 3-level process to bring about a change in your organization. First of all, he asks us to unfreeze the situation. Second, he asks us to change to the new situation. And the third step, he asks us to refreeze the situation. So unfreezing, changing and refreezing. These are the 3 steps proposed by Kurt Lewin. Now what do you mean by unfreezing the situation? First, you need to sensitize your employees. You need to sensitize, means you need to inform them, you need to communicate them about the need for change. Not the change, need for change. See, need for change is different, change is different. Need for change means why we have to change. What factors are causing us to change. So you have to inform them all the factors. You have to inform them the situation. That is called as unfreezing the change. Okay. And what is change? What we have to do, that is change. So in the first step, you should not tell them what we have to do. Rather, you have to tell them why we should change. First, you should tell them why, then how. That is order. But the mistake that is committed by most of the people is, in the first place they tell how. They forget about why. See, for example, if a manager asks me to do something and if he tells me how to do it, one question will be lingering in my mind. That question will haunt me. What is that? Why I have to do this? Why my manager is asking me to do this? Of course, he told me how to do it. He told me how to do it. But I am not convinced with how. My question is why? Why I have to do it? So, first, if my manager is an intelligent one, is a wise one, first he has to give me clarity regarding why. Why I have to do it. Then I am convinced with why. Then I am ready to learn how to do it. First of all, a ground is prepared for making the people to learn. But if you don't prepare the ground and you ask the people to learn, they will not learn. Their minds resist to learn. That is the most important thing. Their minds resist to learn. So for that purpose, Kurt Lewin tells you unfreeze the situation. You sensitize your employees about the need for change. You tell them, you communicate them. You try to make them unlearn. See, this is a kind of unlearn and learning process. Unfreezing means unlearning. Already the organization people, they have learned some ways of doing the things. Now you should ask them to unlearn. First they have to unlearn. That means they have to forget. They have to understand that the existing things are not correct. That is called as unlearning process. And then they have to learn new things and they have to relearn. So unlearn, learn and relearn. These are the three important things proposed by Kurt Lewin. So, you should not impose change as a surprise. Means, straight away you should not tell what changes have to be made. Management must pave the way for the change by first unfreezing the situation, so that members would be willing and ready to accept the change. See, that is the most important thing. You should prepare a ground so that your people are ready to accept the change. What is the change? That we will do in the second step. But now you make them ready, you sensitize them, you make them ready to accept the change. That is the very important thing. Unfreezing is the process of breaking down old attitudes, behaviors, customs and traditions, so that they start with a clean slate. Clean slate. Means, when will your mind become a clean slate? You have to unlearn what you have already learned. You should erase. Erase means, will there be any duster or eraser to erase? No. Then how can you erase? Unlearning. Just learn that your existing habits are not enough, are not good. That itself is enough. That itself. Learning is an eraser. If you learn that your current procedures and practices are not good, then automatically your mind forgets them. That is called as unlearning or making your mind into a clean slate. Okay. And the process of unfreezing simply makes the individuals and organizations aware of the necessity for change and prepares them for such a change. Yeah, very beautifully said. First, you need to be aware of the current situation. You need to be aware of what you have to do, and you have to prepare your organization for change. Okay, and this, how can you do that? By making announcements, holding meetings, promoting the ideas throughout the organization constantly and consistently. Don't think that with a single meeting, with a single announcement, you will get all the things. No, you will not get it. You have to constantly and consistently carry out this process of unfreezing the situation. It takes some time. It takes some 2 months or 3 months or 6 months to unfreeze the situation. And once you are confident that you have unfreezed the situation, that means you made the people to understand the need for change, then the moment is set to bring about the change, to inform them about the change. So that is the second step, changing to new situation. Once the unfreezing process has been completed, their behavior patterns need to be redefined. That means you made them to understand that their old behavior is not correct. Now, you should tell them the new way of behavior. You should tell them the new way of doing the things. That is very important. And for that purpose, how can you imbibe or how can you ingrain the new way of behavior in the minds of the employees? For that, H.C. Kellman has proposed 3 methods. What are they? Compliance, identification and internalization. See, again you have to keep very important point in mind that all people are not alike. All people are not alike. There are different classes of people with different mindsets. So, you have to make change possible with all these people. But all people are not alike. So, for some, compliance method is required. For some, identification method is required. For some, internalization method is required. What is compliance method? It is achieved by strictly enforcing reward and punishment strategy for good behavior and bad behavior. Especially in the lower levels of the management, this method of introducing the change is better. Compliance. That means you tell them the carrot and stick approach. See, this is the thing what you have to do. If you do like this, you will get incentives, you will get rewards, you will get increments. And if you don't do this, you will get punishment. So that people will understand and do that. That is compliance approach. But don't think that all people will go for this compliance approach. Some people don't like this compliance approach. So for them what you have to do? Identification. It occurs when members are psychologically impressed upon to identify themselves with some given role models whose behavior they would like to adopt and try to become like them. So there are certain kind of people who always wants to get motivated from others. They are not bothered about the incentives and all. So for that kind of people, you give them some role models, how to change. So they will study their behavior and accordingly they will try to learn from them and they also change. So this is one way of getting the change through role models. And the third one, internalization. It involves changing the individual's thought process in order to adjust to the new environment. See, for some people, especially at the top levels, you should give some time. You should give them some time to understand the entire process of change. Why the change has to take place, what has to be done, how we should behave. So give them some time to understand. Okay, give them the freedom to learn rather than imposing. See, imposing won't work with all the people. So some people require some liberty, some freedom to think, freedom to understand, because they can think, they can learn, they can understand. So give them some time to think and understand, to learn. So definitely you can bring about change. So this is a very good psychological concept, because for a manager this is very important, how to bring about the change, because the top level managers are change agents. They have to bring the change. Okay, and the next one is refreezing. Okay, unlearning process is over, learning process is also over. Now what you have to do? You have to relearn the same thing again and again to consolidate it, to make it more strong. See, once you learn one thing, again your mind pulls you back to old things. So in order to stop that, constantly and consistently, you have to reinforce the same thing again and again and again. So the relearning process happens so that this new procedure becomes normal and the old procedures are removed. See, this is called as wiring in the brain wiring. That means you need to have a new wiring which is more strong, new neuronal connections in your brain which are more strong, okay, which can adapt to the new situation. That is very, very important. And refreezing occurs when the new becomes a normal way of life. The new behavior must replace the former behavior completely for the successful and permanent change to take place. See, that means the people should entirely unlearn, should entirely forget. Their mind should become clean slates. Then only they can learn new things and then only they can proceed in a new way. And again, that requires lot of time. And here it is very important. It must be continuously reinforced that this new acquired behavior does not diminish or extinguish. See, people started implementing change and they are slowly learning and implementing. And the top level management should encourage them to move in a new path. You should not discourage them. You should not, see, the fire is kindled. The fire is kindled in their brains. So you need to nurture, you need to nourish that fire so that it becomes more stronger. But if you discourage them, that fire will be extinguished. So that again, they'll come back to the old state. So the top level management has to take a lot of care. See, these all things are required in very large organizations. Okay? And change process is not a one-time application, but it is a continuous process. Because we are functioning in a changing, dynamic and uncertain environment. And it is a cyclical one. That means whenever you want a new change in an organization, you have to follow the cycle of unfreeze, change and refreeze. So that is about Kurt Levin's change process. Okay. We have seen about strategic change. How to bring about change in the organization. And now we are going to learn another important concept, that is strategy control. See, already we are implementing a strategy and sometimes what happens? We may not get proper results or desired results or expected results from the strategy. Then what we have to do? We need not change the entire strategy. We need not change the entire approach. But some modifications have to be done. We have to make our strategy more fulfilling. Okay. So for that what you have to do? You have to control your strategy. Okay. And strategy control is very, very important. So in this concept, we will learn about what is that strategy control, what you have to do to control the strategy. These all things we will learn. Now, what is control and what are the elements of controlling process? Before going to learn about the strategy control, first let us understand the meaning of the word control in management context. Okay. And what you should do to control. Okay. So actually, we have 5 main functions of management: planning, organizing, staffing, directing and controlling. And controlling is the last function, but the most important function of the management, controlling. See, what do you mean by control? See, already we will have some standard objectives and we want to perform to achieve those objectives. So, standard performance is fixed and whatever we do, it is called as actual performance. Whatever we do, it is called as actual performance, and whatever we ought to do, that is called as standard performance. Means what we have to do, that is standard performance. What we have done, that is actual performance. Now, always there will be a gap that is caused between the standard performance and the actual performance. Actual performance means what you have done. Standard performance means what you have to do. So always there is a lacuna, always there is a gap. Now, what you have to do? You have to control. You have to control. Means what? You have to find out. You have to find out the reasons. What is causing you to not to work properly? What is preventing you? What is avoiding you? What is obstructing you? What is stopping you to get the standard performance? Is it your culture? Is it your structure? Is it the leadership? Is it the communication? Is it the changing environment? What? What is preventing you? What is avoiding you to perform better and to achieve the standard performance? So that is what you need to understand. That is the most important thing you need to understand. Okay? Right. So control is one of the important functions of management. Control is one of the important functions of management. It is intended to ensure that the organization has achieved what it wants to achieve after implementing a strategy. So why control is required? Why control is required? That is the most important point you need to understand. Why control is required? Because we want to achieve what we want to achieve. We have to achieve what we wanted to achieve. So that is the most important thing. So organization has achieved what it wants to achieve after implementing a strategy. So you are implementing a strategy. Why you are implementing a strategy? There is a purpose. There should be some result for the implementation of your strategy. Okay. Now, are you getting the results? What you are thinking? Are you getting your desired results, your expected results? No, you are not getting. Now you have to find out why. What is preventing me? What I should do? So this is called as control. Okay. Next. That means the control function tells you three important things. Why, what, how. That means why I am not getting the desired result, what should I do to get the desired result, and how I should do it. Why, what, and how. That's why these questions are very, very important. You have to ask the right questions to get the right answers. That is very important. Now, the control function includes three steps. Measuring the actual performance, that means what you have done. Comparing the performance to the standards, what you have to do, that is standard. What you have done, that is actual. Now compare what you have to do and what you have done. And taking corrective actions to ensure that planned events actually occur. So what is the most important thing? The planned events actually occur. Planned events means the standard performance. That should happen. Then only we can achieve our objectives. That means our actual performance and our standard performance should be one and the same. That is very, very important. Next, write about different types of organizational control. How can you control your organization? What are the different methods of organizational control? The first one is operational control. See, you can control your organization at the functional level by using operational control. Okay, that means when can you achieve your objectives? When you perform your operations, when you perform your functions like marketing, finance, sales, HR, logistics, supply chain, production, research, operations, these all things have to be done properly in a optimum manner. Okay, so you have to put some control procedures to carry out your operations in a perfect manner. That comes under operational control. The thrust of operational control is on individual tasks or transactions as against the total or more aggregative management functions. Okay, that means in operational control, we will look at controlling the each and every individual operation. Our marketing operations, our finance operations, our customer dealings, okay, our accounting procedures, everything, every individual function you have to observe. And you have to find out where the problem lies, why you could not achieve what you want to achieve. Many of the control systems in organizations are operational and mechanical in nature. So how do you control all these individual functions? See, going personally and finding out the reasons is very tough because we have n number of operational procedures in an organization, n number. Okay, so for that we need to take the help of softwares. See, for example, the employees should come on time. The employees should come on time. So if the employees are not attending their duties on time, then that is the biggest problem. Then how can you control that? This comes under operational control. How can you control that? You can control that by having a biometric system. You put a biometric device there and you set a time. At 9 o'clock you should come, and if you come late by 5 minutes it is okay, but above 5 minutes you will, even though you come, you will be given absent. So that is a control procedure, and for that you need not appoint a person there. You can have a biometric system, or you can devise a manual system like the attendance register will be on the table only up to 9:05 a.m. and after 9:05 a.m. the attendance register will be on the table of the manager. Like that you can devise a system. So these are all operational controls. Likewise, reorder levels of the inventory. For that you can take the help of some inventory softwares. So like this, these are all operational controls. Inventory control, staff control, okay, absenteeism. These are all operational controls. So how can you control those operations? Using softwares, using some machines, you can have operational control. And some of the examples of operational controls can be stock control, I have already told you, production control, quality control, cost and budgetary control. Okay. Next, coming to management control. When compared with operational control, management control is more inclusive and more aggregative. More inclusive means, see, operational control means we will be concentrating at controlling each and every individual function. Each and every individual function. But here, management control is more inclusive. More inclusive means many things are included. That means, for example, marketing manager is there. Marketing manager has to look about many things related to marketing. Market survey, target market, market targeting, market budgets, market strategy, market planning, okay, consumer surveys, demand forecasting, lot of activities are there. So, each and every activity is individual activity that comes under operational control. And all these activities, if you put together at the functional level or managerial level, then it becomes more aggregative and more inclusive. More inclusive means more functions are included. In operational control, only one function. For every function, you need to have one control. But whereas in managerial controls, in management control, we will have more functions. It is more aggregative. Aggregative means joining, no? Yes. It is the basic purpose to achieve the enterprise goals, short range and long range, in a most effective and efficient manner. That means you need to have proper management control. We have a subject called MCS, Management Control Systems, to control the operations at the managerial level. And you know, this is very important for the success of your organization. And now the third important control which we are learning, that is strategic control. Strategic control focuses on dual questions. That is, whether the strategy is being implemented as planned and the results produced by the strategy are those intended. Very beautiful questions. I am telling you, these questions are very, very important. You need to ask the right questions to get the right results. Okay. The strategy is being implemented as planned or not. See, who has to take care of this strategic control? The top level management. It is operational control or taken care by the functional managers, management control by the business level managers, and the strategic control has to be done by the top level or corporate level managers. So, what these corporate level managers need to do to control the strategy? Means they need to ask two questions. What are the two questions? Is the strategy being implemented as planned or not? That means, are we doing what we have planned or not? Are we following the plan or not? That is the first question. Now the second question is, the results produced by the strategy are those intended. See, by implementing our strategy, we get some results. That is not the issue. But the issue is, whether we are getting the results that we are expecting. Are we getting the desired results or not? That is very important. So these two questions, okay, means are we implementing the planned strategy or not? And the results we are getting, are we satisfied with those results or not? So these are the two questions. And if you get negative answers to these two questions, then it is the time to control your strategy. Okay. Now, let us go to question number 13, which tells what is strategic control and explain different types of strategic control. How can you control your organization? What are the ways to control your strategy? Okay. And Strategic control is the process of evaluating a strategy as it is formulated and implemented. These are all very beautiful points, very incredible, valuable points. What it is said? What do you mean by strategic control? See, you have formulated a strategy and you are implementing the strategy. But the most important thing is evaluation. You should never forget this word, evaluation. We need to evaluate. We need to check out whether we are getting the results or not. Blindly you should not follow. At every point there should be measuring rod. There should be a measuring rod. Measurement of performance, evaluation, whether you are getting the desired results or not. That is very, very important. Okay? And it is directed towards identifying the problems and changes in the premises and making necessary adjustments. What do you mean by strategic control? How you will perform the strategic control? See, here in the second point it is said how you have to perform the strategic control. How? You have to first identify the problems. What problems are there in your strategy implementation? How can you know the problems? You have to evaluate, you have to check out, you have to analyze, you have to measure. Okay, so identify the problem, where it is. Identify the bottleneck, where it is. And what changes in premises are required. See, one very important thing I will tell you. Your strategy, your plan is your premise. What is a premise? It is an assumption. It is an assumption. See, we are planning for the future which is dynamic and uncertain. It is very uncertain. And we had a presumption. We had a premise. We had an assumption that the future will be like this. And we are following it. But suddenly, the situations may change. The conditions may change. Then, we have to change our premise. We have to change our assumption. Because our assumptions are not giving results. Our premises are not working properly. We are not getting the desired results. Then what you have to do? You have to change your premises. You have to change your assumptions. See, once I came to know that my plan is not working, or once I came to know that my assumption is wrong, then I should be in a position to change my assumption, to change my presumption or premise or my perception. I have to change it. Then only I can get results. I should not be a stubborn fellow, no? I should not be rigid. That is why it is said, strategy has to be flexible. It should not be rigid. That is the most important point you need to understand. And accordingly, you have to change your premises. You have to adjust your premises. See, environment is very big. Organization has to adjust according to the environment. Environment will not adjust according to the organization. This is the fundamental point. This is the fundamental tenet, principle that every businessman has to keep in mind. Right?